Welcome to A Life to Roar. Today's today's guest speaker is Juanita Kapp, and she is amazing. I love what she's going to share. She's going to talk about some things about COVID-19, about loss, and she's really talking about leadership and moving forward. And I'm going to let her talk, and because she can do it better than I can on this topic. So, Juanita, why don't you introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about you?
Wonderful. Thank you so much, LS, for the wonderful opportunity to spend this valuable time with you. My name is Juanita Kapp, and I'm streaming in from South Africa. And I have a podcast named Meticulous Moments, through which I facilitate community upliftment through leadership development. And through the course of my 15-year ministry, I have done quite extensive training on leadership and many other topics in the form of digital courses and, of course, in-person courses before COVID hit. So that is a little bit about me. Thank you so much.
Oh, I'm so glad you're here today. And you mentioned COVID, and I see
Thank you.
on the questionnaire that I send out to everybody, you talked about COVID-19 and the passing away of your mother, and I am so sorry. But you talk about doing the right thing the right way on
Yeah.
self-leadership. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Absolutely, absolutely. I had a very, very strong mother in character. She had a very strong character. She wasn't big in stature. She was a smallish lady, but she was very strong. And she was a leader, the leader of our family. And she always taught us that whatever we participated in, we always had to make sure and check in with ourselves that we were doing the right thing the right way. That was her phrase. That was the phrase that we grew up with. And I really went through life really believing that I was doing the right thing the right way. I stayed, with the disciplines that she taught us. I lived by the values and the morals. And really, at some point in my life, I drifted away from those disciplines when I went into the world, drifted away from my faith and God. And it took a very traumatic experience for me to come back to the church. And, I kind of recalibrated myself and I went into the ministry for 15 years. And I thought, I was in the right place, doing the right thing the right way. And then COVID hit. And I call it the 4 M's. It was my ministry failed because COVID closed all the churches. My marriage was failing because we were together in the ministry. So it affected our marriage as well. My master's, I was busy with the last year of my master's, and it was the worst time for us to be on lockdown because I couldn't travel to my invigilator. And unfortunately, my mom in the COVID under heavy lockdown was diagnosed with stage 4 brain cancer. And she was given 3 weeks to live. And we were told that we wouldn't be able to travel to her before she would pass away. So I would sit and pray every day. And I asked the Lord 2 things. I said, Lord, please let her live until I can reach her so I can say goodbye. And please, because it's brain cancer, let her remember me when I get there. And that happened. She passed away. But before she passed away, she took my hand and she told me, she was 65 years old and she had so many things she wanted to do, places to go, instruments to learn how to play, businesses to start, people to meet and see, spend time with. And she thought she had so many years left to live and she didn't. She had a few days, maybe hours, we weren't sure. So she said to me, she apologized and she said she was teaching me the right thing the wrong way. I shouldn't always be busy with, spreading myself too thin, because she taught us everything was about everybody else. Do as much as you can for people, work in the community. But in that, she realized that I was completely burnt out most of the time. I didn't do the things that I really wanted to do or aspired or was ambitious about. And I really came back after her passing. I conducted her funeral and I came back and I started living with intention. And then those 4 M's, those 4 M's that had shattered my ministry, my marriage. I was busy, thank God I could complete my master's and my mom passed away. Those 4 pieces of my life that really changed. It changed everything I believed about God and life and the ministry and love. Those shattered pieces, I came back and I made it into a beautiful mosaic ornament and I called it meticulous. And I lived intentionally through my business called Meticulous. So that is just in a nutshell. Thank you, LS.
Wow, that's quite a nutshell. That's amazing.
Thank you.
That's tough. I mean, it's um you know, I've had another guest who talked about doing this whole change of what you grew up with, what you thought was right, you're sure this is the right thing, and then something happens, and now you
Yeah,
make this pivot to do something else, and you find out what you just said. I was doing the right things, but the wrong way or for the wrong reasons. So what advice do you have for people out there that are just going at it? They're doing the right thing, but maybe they're not being fulfilled by it. Maybe they're doing it for everybody else. What do you say to people to get their attention and say, are you doing it the right way? What is the right way?
yeah. I thank you so much for that wonderful question. You know what I tell people is we really have to come to a level of self-awareness where we realize that it's okay to do the things we love. It's wonderful to do the things we are passionate about. And you know, a misconception is in life and in the ministry, and I don't know, maybe in their working spaces, but certainly in the corporate world as well. Sometimes we are living under the misconception that we are only worthy if we keep everybody happy all the time. And that is really a lie. You will never be able to be in a place, you will never accomplish the task of keeping everybody happy all the time. There has to be a space where you nourish yourself, where you live your purpose and your passion and your dream, and you don't have to feel guilty about that because you are anointed, you are appointed, you are loved, and there is a certain task you have to do. And if you don't self nourish and if you don't operate on a high level of self awareness, you don't pitch up in those situations to your full capacity. So I had to come back and work on myself and do introspection and say, well, it's okay for me to do a few things for other people in the day, but also to make time for myself. It's okay for me to not be at everything, every event, or be participating in everything that I have been invited to. It's okay for me to run my schedule and make sure I have a healthy balance, a work life balance. So, you know, it really takes self communication, which is a part of self leadership, which is a part of self awareness. And it's okay. You are only one person. You can't do everything for everybody all the time. So that's normally the advice I give. And that I can only give because I made the same mistake.
Ah, I love it. But you learn from your mistake, and I love learning this year that failure is okay. Failure is not a bad thing. How
Yeah.
you react to it, how you take action on that failure is where you make the pivot. Um,
Yes.
it's
Wonderful.
just one way that something didn't work. And it's like you don't know if it's going to work or not if you don't try. So don't be afraid to try,
Mm,
and if it fails,
absolutely.
it's okay. Find out why
Yeah.
it failed, find out what you can do next, and and maybe it's just a little change in perspective that you need
Yeah.
to get to where you want to go. Sometimes it's a big change. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, gosh, I just think about
Absolutely.
the changes that you went through on that how and people are going to want to know, how did you do it? How do you make the changes? What are some steps
Yeah.
that they can take too? It's like, well, I've got this and I've got these commitments and I need to do this. At what
Yeah.
point do they stop? Do they just, what's the process?
Absolutely, absolutely. When I came back, what I did before I went is obviously we were on lockdown, so we couldn't really go anywhere. But I made it a part of my routine to sit and pray every day at the corner of my bed. There's a certain time in the morning where the sunlight comes in. And I would sit in that little piece of sunlight. And I have a beautiful home that overlooks the mountains in the Eastern Cape in South Africa. And I would pray because I'm a pastor. I believe in prayer and faith. And I pray to the Lord and I would recite the same psalm every day, Psalm 121. I look unto the hills. Where does my help come from? It comes from the Lord who created the heavens and the earth. And I prayed with, with all my faith that I could muster up, because I went through a lot of anxiety, the fear, every time the phone rang, I would think, oh, is she in hospital? Did she pass away? So it was a very difficult time for me, but I had to encourage myself not to think that way. So I instead of that, every time I would think that way, I would start praying. But to answer your question, how did I make the changes? When I came back, I started to live with more intention. I started to, formulate in my mind, what is my plan? And I wrote my plan down and I started manifesting it out loud. I started journaling. And instead of sitting on the corner of my bed and just watching the mountain, I took action. So I would climb that mountain, and I still do. In the COVID, I went up to the mountain and I found this beautiful rock that I sleep on. So that's my safe place. That's my place of rejuvenation. So I would really say, if I had to put it in one phrase, just take action. Do the things that you feel comfortable with, that nourish your soul and your spirit, but don't just think about the things that you want to change. Don't just talk about the things that you want to change. Put it into action, because then you can see the differences transpiring as you walk that road. And also remember, it doesn't happen overnight. You have to reprogram the way you think, the way you do things, the way you speak about yourself. So it's really going over into action and realizing that you have to have patience with yourself.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Mindset is something I'd
Yeah.
never heard about before until this year. Um,
Oh,
Here's been a real real revelation for me, I realize. And it's all those things you've told yourself, all those things other people have told you. You've got to change that, because some of it is lies, some of it was said with good intentions, but maybe not in a productive way. And um yeah, just start telling yourself what you want to hear. I like what you said, is that you started talking about manifesting them. Now,
yeah.
some people, it's like, whoa, what are you talking about? Is that some kind of hoodoo thing going on? What's manifestation? What are you talking about? So maybe expand a little bit on what it
Yeah.
means to manifest something,
Yes.
you know?
Absolutely. And I'm chuckling, LS, because I'm in the ministry, right? So I'm chuckling because I speak about energy. And I
Yeah,
love to talk about the universe, because if we look at science, science is not our enemy.
no,
God created science so that we could accomplish what we are accomplishing. So a few years ago, if I would have to utter the word science or universe, it would be very, very a bad reflection. And manifesting was something that people didn't know, about. And it sounded like something foreign or something evil, but really what manifesting is to put down what you want to do with your life, what you dream about, your goals, your aspirations, to write them down, to articulate them, to give them to the universe, because the universe will always reciprocate that, and really to be intentional and say, this is what I want. I mean, in the scripture, we can even see that God says we should speak our faith and we should believe, and His word never returns void. So it's nothing foreign, it's nothing strange. It's just us really becoming intentional about our lives. We have the power. The Bible says the power of life and death is in our tongue. So we
yes,
have the power to speak into life what we want. And if we look at God as our Father, He wants us to be happy and successful and fulfilled. So manifesting is really just a way to accomplish that. And also, it strengthens our faith and it takes us on a journey. And a journey is always good because we develop and we grow. None of us can say we come to a place now that we can't learn or grow more. It is a continuous process until the end, until we go to be with the Lord one day.
yeah, I love that. What you talking about that reminds me of the Bible verses, and I'm going to paraphrase here, where God
Mm.
is saying, "Look at you who are evil, and you know how to give good gifts. If your son
Mhm.
asks for bread, do you give him a stone? If they ask for
Yeah.
something else, do you give them a snake? No, you give them what they ask for. Well, how much more will our Father in heaven give to us? And it's
Amen.
sometimes when I pray, when I have real serious issues, things that I just need to talk to my dad about. I call him
Yeah.
Abba Father because he says,
Yeah.
call me Abba Father. And that's
Yeah.
such an intimate, not in a gross way, but an intimate
Yeah.
relationship with your Heavenly Father who knows your heart, who wants to give you good things, who is there for you to back you up, to hold you together,
Yeah.
to encourage you. And I love that. I love that I can just talk to him. I was doing it last night. We're going
Yeah.
through this transition in our personal lives right now, my husband and I, and
Yeah.
just everything that's going on with that. And it's like, Dad, I just need to talk to you. And I
Oh.
love
Oh.
that we can do that. I love
Yeah.
that. So yeah, manifestation is not a bad or weird thing. It's it's just saying out loud what you want to happen. And
Yeah.
and you want good things to happen to you, and there's nothing wrong with that. you know
Mm-hmm.
what is God's the I was looking at the verse. God says, test me in this and see if it won't be
Mm.
so. And he is specifically talking about bringing our tithes into to
Mm.
him, giving the first of everything to him. And he says,
Yeah.
test me in this. I'm going to fill up your warehouses. I'm going to fill up your storehouses, I think is the right word. I'm going to give you enough. You're going to overflow. And we tend, especially with our finances, it's like, oh no, I've got to save this. I've got to make sure I've got to pay this. And a couple of years ago, I took a big leap in that. And I'm not tooting my own horn. I'm just giving you an example. It's like I
Yeah.
gave more than I ever thought that I should have. And
Yeah.
not once did I regret it. And I went into it with the attitude that I'm not going to regret this. I'm either going to go all in or I'm not going to do it at all.
Mm.
So I went all in and I says, okay, God, I'm going to trust you. And I
Yeah.
never missed the money, which shocked me because I always
Yeah.
did before, but I went at it with a different attitude before. It's that
Amazing.
changing that little bit of perspective.
Yeah.
Excuse me, allergies coming in this morning. The sun's rising here. So, but
Wonderful. No, I love what you were saying. The universe never runs empty.
yeah,
I mean, we don't wake up one day and then the sun is not shining completely because it doesn't have the resources. It doesn't happen with the moon. The universe continues. Who created the universe?
yeah,
God. So if we give freely and we give with a good heart, I mean, we can give in different ways. You can give your time, your expertise, your
yes,
love, you know, then God will always fill that up. And I know I'm a testimony that, if you give of yourself and of your time and your energy, God will always restore you, will always be there for you, open the doors that need to be opened. And he's just never running on empty. So why should we shy away from these things? So that's just another perspective. The universe never runs on empty. There's always enough. So we don't have to live in fear of giving. Instead, let's be cheerful givers.
that's right. That's right. And I loved what you said. We don't have to be afraid of the energy in the world because who made
Yeah,
that energy? God did. And and
exactly.
it's, I I think a lot of times we're with the best intentions, we're taught, like you said,
Yeah,
doing things for the wrong reasons or the wrong way.
yeah,
We don't want to uh, I can't think of the right word. It's not
yeah,
change our beliefs. We don't want to compromise on our beliefs. That's it.
yes,
But
yeah,
but we do need to be aware that, you know, some of the things we've learned is what man's interpretation has taught us. And maybe they weren't interpreting it quite right, or it was
mhm,
right for the time, but not now.
yeah,
Um,
true,
so we need to look at
true.
that. So that energy that's out there, if you learn about Reiki or you learn about mindset or other things, you're going to realize things change. I mean, how is it that we can walk into a room and we feel that something's
Yeah,
not right? or
Mm-hmm.
we feel that someone's talking about us, or something like that. I mean, people, you feel those things. Well, it's the energy going on around there. And
Yeah.
so it's not something we need to be afraid of. We don't want to worship that energy itself, because there's more to it than that. Um, in my opinion, we don't want to worship that. I don't
Yeah.
want to,
Yes.
to offend people, but I do believe a certain way, and so this is going to come out
Yeah.
when I talk.
Yeah.
But yeah, so now you've gone through this change, and to get back on topic, um, so what are some of the positive things that came out of it, and do you still have difficulty?
A lot of positive things transpired. I felt like I really found myself again. I think I was living under an impression of who I thought I was supposed to be. And then I thought back to my early 20s. When I was in my 20s, I was also an entrepreneur, and I also did business. And I don't know why during the course of the ministry, I kind of put that on the back burner. And I really I grasped onto the ministry mindset. That was all I focused on, leaving all those other gifts that I had behind. So God has really been working with me since I came back and went through this transformation to take me from an only ministry mindset to a marketplace mindset, to see, that there are so many other things that I'm skilled to do as well, and that I should really utilize those skills and those gifts that are only a blessing of God. So positive things have happened. Yes, of course, the self-awareness is better. My energy levels are high. I also have a practice that I speak out to the universe, because I believe that the universe reciprocates what we send out. So I always say, my life is an adventure. My life is filled with joy and happiness. And I want to be someone, and you spoke about energy, I want to be someone that when people connect with me, they must feel uplifted and energized and happy. So that has also been going on with me. I really try to be intentional about that. Then I try to really balance my work life, the two parts of my life. So I try to make more time for myself. I really love to go hiking. I do martial arts. That keeps me healthy, but it also keeps me focused mentally. I work on my spiritual body as much as I work on my physical body. Mentally, I'm in a good place. Emotionally, I'm in a good place. So, yeah, there's a lot of good things that have come out. I've discovered a few things about myself that I forgot. Not that I didn't know those, but I forgot about them. So it's been refreshing, Alice. It's really been a journey, and I'm happy to be on this path now.
Oh, that's wonderful. And you do all the things you're talking about, that you're manifesting. It is true. We come around you. I haven't heard anybody say any different, but anyone who comes around you definitely feels uplifted. So you've got that one nailed down. Good.
That's good news.
Um, so I do want to
Thanks,
go
Alice.
back just for a little bit, kind of changing it up
Yeah,
here. You
yeah,
talked about going through the grief. So, you know, there's
yeah,
there's a lot happening in the world today, and there is real grief going on. Um,
mm,
how are some ways to deal with grief? I mean,
yeah,
whether it's the loss of a child, which is horrific. I cannot even
mm,
what it's like to go through
yeah,
that, but we lose a loved one, whether it's
yeah,
from uh and I don't know if it would be different on these, but whether it's from a
yeah,
medical issue, an accident, sudden death,
yeah.
whether it's been a long time coming, whether it's from a suicide or just anything. I mean, there's a lot of
Mm,
grief process to go through. So, um, what, maybe leave
yeah.
it a little bit about what you did, and what can we do?
Absolutely, absolutely. I've been in the ministry for so long. I've conducted so many funerals. And when my mom asked her on her deathbed to do a funeral, I thought to myself, I didn't really want to do it because it's my mom,
Yeah.
but I agreed because it was one of her last wishes. So I did it. But it was one of the most difficult things I've ever done in my life, because the first thing we have to realize is that we all handle grief differently. And, we can never be ready for the process of grieving. So I really went into that process of grieving, and I had to realize that just because and I want the audience to also listen to this and take it to heart, just because we grieve, it doesn't mean that we are weak or selfish or that there's something wrong with us. Maybe that our level of faith, is not high enough, or maybe we don't believe enough. That is not true. It is a normal human response to loss. And I really practiced on myself what I've been teaching people through grief counseling for many years. And I always use this illustration. When we grieve, or when we are hurt, or when we are fearful and we go through something traumatic like the loss of a loved one, we tend to build up walls. And we want to hide away because we want to lick our wounds, we want to recover, we don't want to be around people, so we isolate. So we build these walls. And grief is like water. The grief will go against that wall, the water, and it will keep pushing that wall until at some point that wall will fall over and we will be destroyed emotionally, physically, spiritually. So I always tell people to handle it as a net. I always say, if you have a net and there are blocks in the net, you should see yourself not as building walls, but as putting on a net, so that when that grief comes, when it overwhelms you, the water can flow through the net. The water can go through the gaps. Yes, some of it you will keep with you, but the things that are not building you up, you will let go. Because if you don't do that, it will destroy you. So what does that mean? To act like a net when you are grieving. It means if you want to laugh when you sit and think about a beautiful memory of the loved one that you've lost, laugh. You need it. If something reminds you of the person that you've lost and you want to feel sad and you want to cry, cry. That is part of our human emotion. We are built that way. So don't isolate and take yourself out of society and away from people. Still have the conversations that you have, still build relationship, but do what your body wants you to do. If you want to cry about something, or if you want to miss them for a day, do that. Allow yourself to grieve, because a lot of people act very strong and it seems like it didn't affect them. There's no such thing. Grief and loss affects us all. And it's just in how fast are we going to recover? It depends on how we handle it and how we let it invade our lives. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Good illustration
Thank you.
of what to do with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So saying that, I know that you're writing a book. So tell us a little
Yes.
bit about what your book is about.
Oh, thank you so much, Alice. Yes, I recently decided. I've been wanting to do it for many years, but I recently decided, to really become a favorite word of mine, intentional about it. I started putting down the title. I have my chapter names. I have my conclusion, what I want to say, but I really feel that everything I've been through needs to be put onto paper. I really feel people need to realize what goes on in the ministry, what happens behind the scenes, what women especially go through in the ministry, what our families go through, how it feels to, go through the things that we face. I mean, I went through the divorce recently. It might assist someone out there. So I really want to just bring value to people's lives, and maybe they can learn something through my story. I've had to face a lot of traumatic things, and by the grace of God, I was able to come through it all. And I'm still here, and I'm whole, and I'm better. So, yes, I'm busy writing my book, and I will be advertising it as soon as it is completed. So, yeah, keep me in your prayers.
Yeah. So start advertising before it's completed, so people
Okay.
are ready to get it as soon as it's available.
Yeah, I will
My
do
tip
so.
for
I
the
will
day
do
on
so.
writing, whoever's listening to it, just advertise now. It's like you've got the title,
Yeah,
start letting people know, and then they can be
yeah.
ready for it. And part of
Good
that
plan.
is like, well, aren't they going to be tired of hearing about it? And it's like, not really, because you're going to keep reaching people that have never heard about it before. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll follow your advice. Thank you, Alice.
Definitely, definitely. Oh,
Yeah.
so I know sometimes it's hard for people to get started on taking that first step. and it's
Yeah.
like, or they take a step and it's like, well, nothing really happened, so I'm not going to do anything else. But no, you need to take the second step. A
Yeah.
journey is not just one step and you're done. You can't just put your bread in the toaster and expect it to come out with your jelly or whatever it is that you put on it, straight from the toaster without pushing the button down and toasting it, and getting everything ready. Um, so I guess that's procrastination. How do people get over
Yeah.
the just
Oh.
open the door procrastination and get it out of there?
Yeah, no, procrastination is a big thing. It was a huge problem in society before COVID. And I think it might be even a bigger problem now because some people went home and they started businesses and they doubled their income during the lockdown, even though everything just went online. Other people didn't do that. They went home and they procrastinate. So it really, I think, depends on the personality of the person, but how to deal with procrastination. What I tell people when I counsel them or when I do life coaching is to say, you should really realize that procrastination is the enemy of your development. Because if you procrastinate, you are going to stay the same. And you live in an ever changing world with ever changing systems, and you are going to be left behind. And you will not be able to breach that gap by the time you realize the mistake that you've made. So I always tell people, view procrastination as your enemy. Be gracious with yourself. If you have a few off days and you don't feel like writing a part of your book, you don't feel like exercising, take that mental break. But realize you have to get back on top of your day. You have to start, with your chores again or with the tasks that you've put down. You have to work at your business every single day, even if it's something small. You have to keep that momentum, because if you don't keep the momentum, the whole tomato cart falls over. The whole process stops. It goes into limbo, and it takes so much more energy just to build that momentum up again. And I also use the illustration. I used to do cross country running extensively when I was in school. And we used to run 10Ks on a Saturday. And I always tell them, you don't run and then you stop. If you can't run fast, then you run a little bit slower, or at least you walk a little bit, but don't stop, because the moment you stop, it takes so much more energy and effort just to start again and to get back in your stride, that by the end of it you are just tired and you don't even feel like completing it. So when I used to run, I never stopped my stride. I would run a little bit slower, but I would never stop. And that is really what we should view procrastination as well. If you get tired, make sure you don't stand or sit down. Just keep going. And how do you keep that momentum? By doing something small and significant every single day.
Yep. Very good advice. Very good advice. Well, thank you so much.
Thank
My
you.
alarm's going off, telling me it's time to go on to other things.
Good.
But thank you so much for being here and for all of your great information. How can people get a hold of you?
Wonderful. The best way to get hold of me is either to look for me on Facebook, Juanita Kapp, or on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn as well. I have a YouTube channel. You can just put in my name and it will pop up. And then also you can email me at meticulousmacarons@gmail.com. So I will reply. And then, yes, if you want to be a part of the Meticulous Moment podcast, reach out to me and we can have a healthy discussion on leadership. Thank you, Alice.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you, my pride and joy, for being here too. We'll see you next time on A Life to Roar.